This video isn't about the science of burnout or how to identify if you have it, because, I'm not a licensed therapist or doctor. But what I do want to talk about is a theory for why I think burnout is so common, especially in the tech industry. On the anonymous professional networking platform Blind, 61% of professionals in February self-reporting themselves as being burnt out. And that number has only risen to 73% because of COVID 3 months after the initial poll. Some tech companies are notorious for burning out their employees, and the platform has numerous threads of folks sharing their own burnout stories. The unmanageable workload, the expectation to constantly perform perfectly, or the evaluation of performance based on output, which then creates this toxic productivity-focused work environment. These things are not entirely uncommon in the tech industry. I've experienced burnout in basically every job that I've had, so I was trying to accept that it's just a part of tech life. But after I stepped away from working in a corporate environment, I thought, does it have to be? But first, let's define burnout, because it can mean a lot of different things. So basically, in a nutshell, that's how I want to frame this video. It happens when the reward we get is not worth the effort that we put in. This equation, the balance between reward and effort, is really what I want to focus on today. So let's talk about the effort side of the equation first. I just want to say, with every year that passes by and the more that I learn about coding in tech, I've concluded it takes a hell of a lot of effort just to make something. Not only does it take individuals to learn and master technologies that are current and state of the art, but they then need to use that knowledge and spend hours and hours building something that's probably never existed before in the same way. That alone is a lot of work. Pile on top of that all the coordination and communication that needs to happen before any building takes place to make sure that they're building the right thing to begin with, which then is super subjective because it depends on the product managers, designers, executives, and anybody else with power on their goals and purpose for their work. Then, once it's built, making sure everything works okay, figuring out how to deliver the thing, telling users about the thing, and then finally making sure it keeps working once it's delivered. Honestly, sometimes I think it's a miracle that things get built and that we have the tech that we do, because in each step, a lot of things can go wrong, like realizing too late that you're solving the wrong problem, or that something isn't technically feasible, or that two of the leaders of your project don't see eye to eye on how to solve a problem because one of them wants a promotion and the other one wants to solve a problem for a very specific user. So yeah, creating technology takes a lot of effort, and a lot of things can go wrong in the process that could prevent something from being built at all. So already, one side of the reward versus effort equation is pretty heavy. So naturally, I think a lot of people would expect a lot of reward for that amount of work. So now let's talk about that side of the equation. What each of us see as rewarding is completely subjective, and a lot of it is based on our backgrounds, personality, interests, and values. Some people value financial stability. Others value the flexibility to do what they want to in life. Some value status and external validation, and others are in pursuit of feeling like they're making a difference in the world. And the best thing is for each individual to evaluate what tangible goals these values translate to based on who they are and their own situation. But what I've noticed is that in the tech industry, we tend to hype up the same tangible goals. So things like getting a job at a FAANG company, making a big salary, getting a promotion, or getting a job at a mission-driven company are what we've been able to think of so far as how we know we've made it. Underlying all of this, obviously, are the values that are core to each individual person. But for some reason, we've accepted that those goals are the ones that everybody should strive for regardless of their situation. It can be helpful to have quorum on how our values manifest in the real world. Like, it can help spur inspiration or help point towards a direction where we might want to explore. It's the benefit of walking down a path that's been walked down before, because we can use others' journeys as checkpoints for our own. Even while so many people have their own unique story into the industry, at the end of the day, It feels like everyone ends up at a FAANG company at some point. Even if that's not true, it sure feels like it because that's how we framed success. But I think when we internalize these few paths, our imagination becomes limited and we start believing that these paths are like the only ones out there. We might forget what we actually want for ourselves when we start to see other people's paths as our own. And when we achieve those goals that we, maybe didn't even really want in the first place, we feel disappointed because the reward doesn't come and it just wasn't worth it. My theory is that this is precisely one of the many causes of burnout in tech. If burnout is a failure to balance reward and effort, we put a lot of effort in for work that we end up realizing are not really that rewarding for ourselves. It can be difficult to manage this too, since you don't know if something's going to be worth it or not until you put in that effort first. I think this has a lot to do with why the average tenure for a software engineer is 2 years. As in, after giving 2 years of solid effort, most people evaluate whether this job is worth it or not. I've seen this in my own career so far. One of the values that I've used as my North Star is to help people with the work that I do. So when I started to work at a mission-driven company with a mission I really aligned with, I was ecstatic. So I poured my heart and soul into working on the iOS app for them, commuting 3 hours a day for that job. But I realized 2 years later that the leaders of this company didn't really see the app that I worked on as a key part of their strategy, and therefore my work wasn't actually really helping anyone despite the work I put in. Burnout. Or when I worked at a FAANG company because I was under the impression that my work would reach millions of people and make a big impact. So I poured my heart and soul into working on features, collaborating with people from other teams, and then seeing that at the end, the work that I did didn't really feel like it did anything, especially because it was hard to see how it contributed to the product outside of a few graphs that showed me a few metrics moved by tiny fractions of a percent. Burnout. And I'm so grateful to have even had these opportunities to begin with because I know not everyone does. And it wasn't like there was any one person who was responsible for the outcome either. I kind of just accepted that maybe this is just how it is in tech. Software engineering takes a lot of effort. I think that's true no matter where you look in the industry. So the effort side of the burnout equation is fixed. So what can we do about the other side of the equation, the reward? Well, for one, the tech community is always going to hype up things. It's just the laws of popular culture. But I think we as individuals can view this from a different lens to help us better understand the industry and ourselves. When you look closely at these things that we're all supposedly striving for, there are fundamental rewards behind them. I think when people strive for the common goals, what they're really after are those rewards. But burnout happens because when they achieve them, they might not get the reward they were expecting for the effort they put in. Probably because they were pursuing a goal they didn't really want in the first place. So I guess my theory for one way to alleviate burnout in tech is for us as an industry to be more imaginative and challenge ourselves to find our rewards through ways that feel authentic to us. Heck, there are plenty of people who are doing this already. Those who've never worked at FAANG, those who don't work in Silicon Valley, maybe have a traditional 9-to-5, and have found ways to navigate their career in a way that feels authentic to them. How might we learn from them? And I think it's also important for each of us to reflect on our current situation and ask, is the reward I'm getting worth the effort that I'm putting in? Is it what I expected or wanted all along? Managing that fine balance between reward and effort is really tricky. Of course, the common ways that folks often talk about curing burnout are a part of this too. So taking vacations and taking breaks and managing healthy relationships with your coworkers. But I think the real first step is to do that evaluation. Am I getting the reward I expect for the effort that I put in? It might be uncomfortable to sit with that reality, but I think it's important to be honest with ourselves and sit with that discomfort rather than prioritize it away out of fear that we're just simply not getting what we put into our jobs. Because when we sit with it and we see it, we're able to start figuring out what's going on in the first place. And that's always the first step. step. Once we can do that, we can start imagining how we might make changes, big or small, to get the reward each of us need for the effort we put in. Sure, it might mean pursuing something that no one's done before, and that definitely comes with risk, and therefore is a privilege to actually go after it. But I know that we can't go on like this until literally everyone in the industry is burned out. Because how are we going to use technology to help society if we're not helping ourselves? Speaking of exploring what's out there and being imaginative with what other things you can do with technology, this video is sponsored by Trends, the ultimate knowledge hub from The Hustle. It's a community built for entrepreneurs, founders, investors, and ambitious people to gather, learn, workshop, and collaborate. Trends gives you the information and network you need to be successful, and it's a great place to jumpstart your ideas and workshop with like-minded builders. I found it as a great place to find what's going on in different industries, like how the paper notebook business has done, and also what trends you can trade on in Japan. And there's a ton of opportunities to network with entrepreneurs and people who are really thinking about what's next in the industry. So right now you can get your first 2 weeks for just $1. Go to trends.co/Mayuko for your $1 2-week trial. Thank you so much to Trends for sponsoring today's video. If you like this video, then make sure to subscribe and let me know what your thoughts are about burnout in the comments down below. I'll see you next time and take care, everybody. Bye!